Welcome. My name is Thomas Meservey. I'm from R2M Solution, and I'll be the workshop moderator, as stated, on open innovation test beds. We'll hear an opening motivation from Alain Zarli on how our OITBs an opportunity for innovation in the construction sector as an accelerator to SMEs and why Europe cares about those. Then we'll hear from 3 open innovation testbed projects from Francesco Babic at EURAC on Me0E, from Dimitri Fantanas joining us just today from NTUA. Thank you for being here. And then from Germaine Adel from Novatech INF4 on the Meta Building Labs project. And collectively, these projects are 45 million euro in R&D funding. So each one is 15 million. Each one is fairly large, 20, 30, one is 42 partners. So there is a large critical mass in these projects, and it's the first time these projects come together to discuss, to share what these projects are, and maybe to point forward to collaborating to do something in the future together. So this is the spirit of the workshops. We welcome also our online participants. Thank you for being here with us. So what is an open innovation testbed? This is the definition provided by the European Commission. This is not our interpretation. So it's a set of entities established in 3 member states, providing common access to physical facilities, capabilities, and services required for the development, testing, and upscaling in industrial environments. The objective to bring together innovative products within the reach of companies and users in order to advance from validation in the laboratory environment, TRL4, to prototypes in an industrial environment and further, TRL 7+. And they should be governed by a single entry point. So the idea is, let's get together RTOs, universities with testing facilities, buildings that agree to provide their structures to testers to develop their innovations. And instead of it being a conversation between an SME and their single local RTO or local university, what if these could form networks so that maybe one is a center of excellence in BIPV, another is a center of excellence in additive manufacturing? Let's put those skills and capabilities together so that it is easier for an SME to move faster and to innovate or to know what to do. And why is the EU interested in OITBs? I took a look back to the call text, and it's very long, but to summarize, some of the key things that come out of that call text are these: EU SME competitiveness, to streamline product development processes, to increase the use of testing facilities, and encourage industry, academia, RTO collaborations. And if we do all of that, we increase the competitiveness and innovation within our construction sector. So these are the reasons for that to be interested. So that ties right into this next presentation delivered by Alain Zarli on EU construction open innovation testbeds as drivers for SME product development from the perspective of the ECTP, of which Alain is the Secretary General. So Alain, thank you for presenting with us today, and I turn it over to you. And I'll shift you to this chair.
Yeah?
Yeah, because the camera sees you.
Okay, great.
For the online.
No problem. Okay, thank you very much for the nice introduction, Tom. Very good afternoon to everyone. Very, very happy to be here with you. This is a nice opportunity for me, of course, to discuss about what Tom has nicely introduced, about the interest, of course, in particular for SMEs of the construction sector to deal with OITB. And indeed, it's more than OITB from my point of view, and this is something that ECTP has been working on since several years. It's really trying to develop an innovation framework, indeed, for all the actors, all the stakeholders of the construction sector, but of course with a focus on the SMEs. Very, very quickly, in 2 words, ECTP, this is the European Construction Technology Platform. It has been created nearly 20 years ago now. It groups more than nearly 150 stakeholders who are really very, very active in research and innovation in Europe. And it is indeed the lobbying force toward the European Commission, and we'll get back to that point later on, to discuss with the European Commission, of course, about the upcoming challenges, and of course, the consequence about the required research and innovation that should be developed, of course, by our innovative stakeholders in Europe. So it's a Belgium association, and which is of course very, very connected, as I mentioned to you, to the European Commission. Not get into these details, but what is interesting is that what we do in ECTP in terms of foresight, road mapping, or trying to develop some initiatives is really to be considered in the context of those trends. You all know them, I guess, so I'm not getting into the detail. But what is the most important from my point of view is that we are facing an increasing complexity in terms of development of product, system, and integrating all those products and systems into the built environment. And this, of course, requires more and more expertise, more and more knowledge coming from many, many different actors. This means that we have at a given point in time to group those actors together, which are from various, coming from various origins with various expertise and so on and so forth. And this is something that I'm going also to argue a little bit more later on. But this is also in this context that when the European Commission started to develop the concept of OITB, this was first and primarily for other industry sectors. And that was at that time that the European Commission discussed with the ECTP of the need to develop large projects targeting OITB in the construction sector. So for us, this notion of OITB is to be considered in a broader view of revisiting indeed the innovation ecosystem for construction in Europe. And we have to do it for the SMEs. We have oftentimes discussed these points with many of you. You know those figures. The SMEs play a key role in the construction sector and in innovation in the construction sector, definitely. But what has struck me is that sometimes when I discuss with SMEs, they know very well the products that they developed. But oftentimes they know quite less the way those products can be integrated in a building, for instance, or in an infrastructure. And they even less know how they can really interact with other products, other innovative products or systems. So we understand that we have to offer kind of an innovation framework that is going to help those SME to integrate with other innovators coming from RTOs or universities or specialized SMEs, just like, for instance, R2M, or those SMEs who are developing very, very advanced technological systems. What we have to do as well is to help them getting a better flavor of what are the opportunity at European, national, and regional level to get funding to develop their innovative products. So definitely, we need for this a revisited construction innovation ecosystem for the reason I've put here. And this leads to a concept which is sometimes referred to eco-innovation networks or cluster. There are many, many different definitions of clusters, but we believe that step by step we are developing a vision around this cluster. And clustering from this point of view is something which is very, very key and should be really encompassing the overall approach. And OITB has to shape it inside this notion of clustering. As far as ECTP is concerned, we are acting at a European level, and we intend indeed to capitalize on this notion of clustering for our members, but overall, I would say, for all the construction stakeholders in Europe. And this is something that we plan to develop in particular in trying to revivifying what we have called a network of national technology platforms. There is here Germain, who is, by the way, now today the coordinator for this national technology platform inside the ECTP. And the idea is really to leverage on the appropriate tools, including common collaborative environment, to facilitate in the future the SMEs to get in touch with the right people, to get funding, to get additional expertise, to in some way travel hand on hand with, for instance, RTOs or other experts that will help them really struggle with all the barriers related to the innovation. So this is something which is very, very important. And this is where ECTP would like to see, and this is my last slide, where ECTP would like to see really a new vision for this innovation, development, and rollout, trying to consider the complexity of the innovation ecosystem, the importance of having well-identified contact points, if I may say, and in particular, as far as OITB, the one-stop shop, or this concept of single entry point that you have introduced, some are very, very essential, and where we can, of course, better structure the overall process for SMEs to access to experimentation spaces, testing facilities, living labs, and so on and so forth, and having in some way a framework that will help them better assess and understand also something which is very, very complex and is related to regulations, which is quite complex in the built environment, and in particular, by the way, in France. So having access also to those regulatory sandboxes. So I just want to mention that some of this work is done in project, which is Meta Building, which is not an OITB project. So this is a different project where we are working with some of you. But of course, I do believe that this is a structuring framework from my point of view, or at least from the ECT point of view in the future, to really offer an access to these OITBs for all our innovation stakeholders, and in particular SMEs. I stop here. Hopefully I've not been too long, but you know that I'm always talkative. Sorry for that. Thank you very much anyway.
Thank you. Okay, we'll just shift over in the chair. And if it gets too loud with the traffic, we could shut that back window. If it's fine, if you can hear in the back, then we're perfect here. And now we'll hear from our first OITB project from Francesco Babic from URAC. And as we look at these three projects, we're trying to identify, even within ourselves, what is each project doing? How are they alike? How are they different? And what does that mean? So we'll start with the first one. Francesco, thanks for being here from me, 0E.
So good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, thank you, Tom, for the nice introduction and for having organized this workshop. So in my presentation, I will start briefly with just a quick overview about myself. So you know who's presenting the project. I'm Francesco Babic, Senior Researcher at URAC Research, Northern Italy, an applied research center. And I come from a technical background. So I'm an engineer with expertise in simulations, primarily energy simulations and CFD simulations. And in the last years, I also started to coordinate different projects. One is MISERI, which is the topic of today. And the other two are two projects about indoor air quality in schools, in offices and residential buildings. And I'm also the chair of one of the BIPSA publication committee. For those of you who don't know IBIPSA is an international network of people doing simulations. And so why we started with the idea of MISERI? Essentially with a simple sketch. There are beautiful ideas, and we are just in the previous presentation that there is a quite important unlocked potential in products and ideas developed by small and medium enterprises, but I would say also by larger companies to some extent, that either don't reach the market or reach only a small potential of the market they actually have. And so the idea was to create a bridge between what is a potential product to actually a full product, fully characterized and fully exploited, most importantly. So the idea of MISERI is to create an ecosystem, a new distributed open innovations ecosystem for what? To develop solutions for the envelope to reach the NZAP target, to transfer knowledge, most importantly, to match the need for the testing offer with the testing needs, and to provide monitoring of real buildings, because in the end of the day, we need to know how a specific product performs in reality, and in general to support standardization of solutions that by nature being very new don't have a standard or don't fully have a standard to be characterized. And in general, in terms of partnership, we have quite a few partners. I think it's 25, the total number, which can be grouped in 4 main categories. We have the RTD partners, which are 9, and are those providing labs and experimental capabilities. And Europe is one of them. Then we have Polimi, Leitat, University of Innsbruck, ZAG, Krakow University of Technology, Danish Technical University, and Technalia, so quite spread around Europe. We have a bunch of industrial partners, which I would say are very important, and they are very important because they are basically the client, so those that we are targeting with Mid-Zero-E. But if you consider the full name, Open Innovation Testbed, to do open innovation, it's also important to have the peer-to-peer learning and collaboration. So perhaps the solution that somebody is developing as a larger market and the other industrial partner can see. And then we have these measurement and verification partners, which are essentially 3 companies that have a large expertise in measuring things in reality. So while all the industrial partners are very good in measuring things in their labs, and they know the physics very well, they may know also the business case, sometimes they are not used to go outside in the real world. And for this, we have the 3 partners. And then 3 partners, which are basically providing the platform, that is R2M, and exploitation and communication, so the other components needed to create the ecosystem. And I'm not going to read all the impacts that we have to meet with this project, but I just wanted to put them here to show how important small and medium enterprises are for this project. And you just heard in the previous presentation that essentially they are the main target of such a project. And in particular, in our single entry point, the idea is to have this web-based virtual marketplace, which will include 9 pilot measurement and verification lines, and you will see in a while what they are. 3 open innovation services, some living labs, real buildings used as living labs to test the technologies, and then some additional resources. And as I said, the end goal is to have fully characterized products and unlock their potential. This is a scheme that basically represents and summarizes the idea of the ecosystem, which embeds some channels to promote the virtual marketplace. And we highlighted the 3 different phases of open innovation, which, as I said, basically is a paradigm shift from closed innovation. I have a company and I tend to do all my research and development inside the company, with an open innovation approach, which in very short means I can either buy in ideas from others and exploit them within my company, or I can decide to sell out some of my knowledge and somebody else that does the exploitation for me, and I get some benefit in different legal forms. And okay, there is no, you remove the, no, I thought there were some animations, but anyway, this is to summarize.
It's a PDF now.
Okay, no problem. Basically, the idea of this scheme was to summarize how the different pieces of the project are connected. So we have these pilot measurement and verification lines that potentially can go down to TRL2, most likely 3 to 4, down to 6. Then we have the living labs, in which we can move the testing from labs, so controlled or semi-controlled environments, to the real world. And we have some complementary services, these 3 services that essentially cover different aspects. And the idea, of course, is that we mainly target TRL 4 to 7, 8, but potentially we can expand a bit more. And as I said, we have 9 pilot lines, and they cover different teams and technologies. So we have, for instance, photovoltaics. We have the interaction between the indoor environment and the building envelope. We have as I said, photovoltaics. We have the interaction between the user and the facade, the visual performances, which are crucial, especially in certain type of buildings in which there is a large proportion of glazed elements. We have a lab for multi-layer dry elements and mechanical resistance, solar heat gains, and timber-based constructions. And without entering too much in details, but we try to target 3 main technical requirements and drivers, which are safety, health, and efficiency. And the idea is the different pilot lines combined together can tackle all these different aspects. So going to more details in requirements like statics, durability, but also fire resistance. As I said earlier, the impact on the indoor air quality, because in the end of the day, we build buildings for users. If there are no users, most of the energy consumption for buildings would be 0 and related CO2 emissions as well. So the starting point are the users or the use of the building in case of a server or something like this. And this is just to give you a quick overview of some of the labs that are being developed or connected thanks to this project. So for instance, Polytechnic of Milan is building a new lab which enables to test different solutions for different parts of the envelopes, including the roof with different orientations. At Europe, we have labs to test either basically fully controlled conditions, or to test semi-controlled conditions and therefore going a bit closer to real buildings. Of course, we have cubic of Tecnalia and other elements, including some of us have dummy occupants. And the advantage of having these dummy occupants is that you can enhance the replicability of the testing, and in the idea of getting also the standardization of the testing, it's helpful sometimes to be able to have dummy occupants that behave in the very same way every time in which you repeat a test. And we have both acoustic and thermal mannequin. Complementary to the pilot lines, which are very vertical, very specific on one topic, so for instance, the relationship between indoor environment and the envelope or fire resistance and so on, we have these free services led by one research partner and then with others contributing, which target three very important aspects. One is certification and marking, in particular CE marking, but not only. One is about basically measuring performances in reality, the second one. And the third one is about life cycle management and including open innovation in this. And they are very important because, as I said, they are transversal, they cover different technologies, and they are complementary to the very detailed analysis done in the pilot lines. Another important element are the living labs. Living lab is a word that is widely used at the moment, and so we try to come up with some definitions, some incremental definitions of facilities. Basically, you can have a facility that is not a living lab, a facility fully controlled with no people involved. Then a step further is having the possibility to include some human factors, but still humans kind of clearly perceived to be in an artificial environment. Then we have the most commonly used living lab definition, so some places in which people can spend some time. It feels very realistic, but still not the real building. And the last step is the real building used as a living lab. In that case, basically, you can study what people do or how technology perform, but in a full real building, so complying with all regulations. And in the project, I would say we cover all of them with different steps. So pilot lines arrive approximate to the third step, so living lab, and what we call living labs as real buildings are the final step. And here is just basically the way in which we are approaching the real building as living labs in the project. So the idea is that in this project, as opposed to most of the other horizons I've worked on, we don't have the demo selected yet, and they are not part of the consortiums, but we are opening, and actually is open right now, a call for buildings. And the idea is to match the available technologies with some buildings that are suitable for those technologies, so they are a good place to test them. And then basically we will evaluate how much material is needed to have a meaningful test. There will be a Gantt implementation, engagement with the final users. And the final users came in either the facility manager, the building owner, depending on the type of technology, measuring the performances, and finally processing the data. Again, I'm not going to go through all the details, but the fact that in this project we have many results, actually, it's a synthesis of four main types of results. We have the virtual-based marketplace developed by R2M. We have the pilot line themselves, which essentially are the most technical part of the offer of the single entry point. Then we have the free open innovation services, so free services complementary, and finally the industrial products, which are basically the beta tester of the ecosystem. They have, if you want, the luxury to be at the same time using the system, but also collaborating in shaping the system. So as a client, you can somehow influence the offer. And this is just a few snapshots of the products we are testing. We have started to testing. So you see there are multifunctional facade modules, smart control systems and strategies for windows, flexible organic photovoltaics, smart actuator for windows, or this flexibility application essentially is a combination of a flexible material with the photovoltaics embedded. But also we have other materials for like hydrophobic coating. We have sealing tapes. We have construction systems that basically is supposed to better distribute the structural loads, insulation materials, and timber-based prefabricated systems. And what is emerging is that sometimes some of those industrial partners, even inside the project, realize that their product have a larger potential than what they thought, because they know very well, going back to the first presentation, what the product is and what it does. But they don't know that it could be used for other applications. And maybe the next partner says, oh, well, but you could solve my problem. And if this works, is the best, the best usage of open innovation. The website is open. So if you're interested to know more, you can just either click on take a picture of the QR code, or, it's very simple. It's mid0e.eu. And there you can find more information, including the fact that this call for bidding is open at the moment. And perhaps there will be also another one, depending on how many biddings we find. The idea, as I said, is to try to find the best buildings for the technologies we have, because the idea is that these buildings are primarily useful for the industrial partners to demonstrate to a potential client that their innovative solution work. And with this, I have concluded my presentation. I don't know, I'm doing about timing.
Perfect.
So thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you. Questions at the end.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Francesco. Thank you, Francesco. So that finishes our first OITB project. We'll now move to our second OITB project, coordinated out of Greece, NTUA, by Dimitri Fontanas. And let's hear about iClimaBuilt. And this is incorrect on the slide. There's an error there. That's not Meta Building Labs. This is iClimaBuilt, which becomes obvious as we transition to this slide. So, Dimitri, thank you.
Thank you for this, and thank you for organizing everything. Hello from me as well. I'm Dimitris Fontanas. I'm part of the NTUA coordination team of iClimaBuilt, which is for functional and advanced insulating and energy harvesting storage materials across climate adaptive building envelopes. So just some very general details. As you know, all the three projects presented today are under the same core topic about open innovation testbeds for materials for building envelopes. Our project is a 48-month project, similar to other projects funded at around $15 million. And as we said, coordinated by NTUA in Greece and Professor Kostas Haritidis. Our consortium is consisted of 27 partners from 14 different EU countries, 16 of them being research and technology organizations, and we have 11 SMEs as well. So the basic concept of iClimaBuilt, it's we're aiming to create an open access ecosystem for developing, upscaling, testing different innovations for building envelope materials. We're testing it and implementing it through our 9 pilot lines, partner pilot lines, in order to reach near zero energy balance. Our goal as well is to support the translation of research results and innovations, so lower TRL materials, applications, and concepts into higher TRL, closer to market systems through our single entry point, through our ecosystem, which is being developed through the project. So the 5 main targets, if we can break it down like that, of the project, it's the material development aspect of the 9 pilot lines of the consortium, which aiming to produce different test cases with improved the monitoring and characterization aspect through strategies to support decision making through different characterization facilities, modeling and simulation, and living lab testing. Then dissemination and exploitation activities in order to reach a wider audience, key stakeholders, and clustering activities like this one. And also support SMEs and support the consortium to access financing solution and reinforce their competitiveness. So we have broken down our project into 3 phases. We're currently getting close to the end of phase 1, which we're setting up all the ecosystem aspects, the building blocks, which are the service provisions of the project, while developing and validating oral internal procedures. As soon as we reach phase 2, our single entry point will be up and operational and tested and validated through an open call. And finally, after all this is tested, everything will be fine-tuned and, let's say, ready for the market as soon as the project finishes. So the 3 main objectives of the project, it's based on these phases. So the ecosystem development and technical setup, which this ecosystem is broken down into 6 building blocks, one of them being materials supply through our 9 pilot lines, upgrade the consortium's infrastructure and technologies and peripheral systems throughout the duration of the project to be more competitive, and set up technical competencies and services for horizontal activities across all material development in the project. Then, regarding the validation of the system, it's going to be a combination of test cases developed within the consortium from the project partners, but together with an open call that we're going to bring in around 10 new test cases. The main goal is to develop a workflow, an automated workflow for our ecosystem, for our single entry point, for fast characterization, optimization of materials and building components, and link it with standardization as well. And yeah, finally improve operational procedures for testbed lines based on our test cases. And in parallel, the operational efficiency and sustainability aspect of things, it's setting up a joint venture with the partners to administer this ecosystem through a single entry point, developing the project linked with an automated workflow, database, a digital system, cloud infrastructure for this aspect, and also provide both the company and the external, I guess, ecosystem users with financing schemes. Oh, sorry. So I'm not going to go through all the impact aspects. So the first one is to increase the number of SME users for testbeds and also support SMEs, improve industrial process parameters through pilot line upgrades, material production monitoring, AI, and data analytics, faster verification of system performance through novel and innovative monitoring in living labs or in real conditions, together with modeling and simulation. And finally, faster verification of material performance to contribute to a cost-effective transformation and reach near-zero energy efficiency goals. So for our ecosystem, so a bit more about the ecosystem aspect of the project. So we are aiming to build a cross-domain business ecosystem and linking, so more or less as a matchmaking between service suppliers and users to support them with product development, upscaling, and testing. This is mostly targeted as all open innovation testbeds into high-tech SMEs to support them to scale up, bring their product to the market, and cope with continuous technological complexities. So our ecosystem is broken down into 6 service categories, which is our kind of core building blocks. So materials by design, so new material and product development. This is both through the pilot lines of the project, but we can support external pilot lines as well, both to design their material, but to upscale as well through process optimization and machine learning. The technical and characterization aspect, which is in different levels. So laboratory on a material level, on a component level of a test case or a building envelope component, let's say, through outdoor test facilities or large-scale testing. And then living lab testing as well, together with the designed testing in those facilities, the data acquisition systems and all the monitoring and sensing aspects. Then we have visual performance testing as well, so combining real testing and characterization with modeling, simulation, and digital twinning of facilities, safety assessment, standardization, and regulation, and sustainability assessment through LCA, LCC. And finally, financing investment and innovation, so supporting SMEs into finding more financing support, business modeling, and in general technical economic analysis and market validation. So our single entry point, its development's key goal is to link and connect customers, potential SMEs that need support to bring the product to market, to test, validate, and upscale their solutions. I think we've gone through most of these things, but the main thing of this slide is that this is an ecosystem that is matchmaking and linking customers, being a one-stop shop, let's say, for their support. And this way we can provide, I guess, a better price and a more holistic approach. So as I said before, this will be validated through our project test cases, but through an open call, which will launch in August 2023, where companies or small consortia as well will be able to develop and test their technologies for different materials for building envelope components. The specific application project and guidelines are currently being developed within the consortium, analyzing all the needs and capabilities of all the partners and the timeframes as well. It will be utilized and test and validate the ecosystem and fine-tune our services. So all the feedback we receive from the open call and from the project, from the consortium, will be fine-tuning the ecosystem when it launches officially to everyone at the end of the project. The open call applicants will need to describe their lack of knowledge and how we, as an ecosystem, can bridge those gaps. We're aiming to utilize one open call test case and link it with one of our project's pilot lines. And we have a budget for this of 1.1 million, which will be going to the open call applicants. And we're aiming around 10 commons or small consortia to be funded. So yeah, I guess stay tuned. We'll have more or less a year until this launches, but we are trying to kind of disseminate it from early on. And yeah, I think that's it from me. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I guess it's Q&A afterwards, isn't it?
Yes, and we had one question on when was the open call, and you answered it.
Perfect.
So that was done well.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. Guess I'm done. Perfect.
Great. Now we'll shift to the third and final OITB project. And we bumped into a couple times now, questions and answers. In fact, we do hope to have a discussion at the end because we'll have some time left. So think of questions to ask, and also for our online audience to drop them in the chat. They're very welcome. So now we'll hear from Germain Adel from Novatech INF4 and presenting on the Meta Building Labs project. Germain, welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this, and thank you all attendants for being here and learn a little more about what we are doing at these OITB projects. So, to start with, let's go quickly through the easy things. So we have all the three projects answer to the same call for open innovation testbed. So some differences. We are sensibly bigger as a consortium than the other two OITBs. We have 40 partners, which is quite challenging to manage, but there's a reason for that. In fact, European countries, and as you are this is of easy big names in each country. So this is, as I said before, difficult to manage, but very, very interesting for the sake of having covered a large number of countries, and also to have let's say, a trustworthy entry point in each of the represented countries. So the objectives are more or less the same. So you can read them, and I think this is common thing among all the three projects. But just a comment on our approach. We have a very defined approach into ecosystem. So as Alain said before, we started this project from a project before, which is called MetaBuilding. We named and we mentioned this before. And I will explain later a little bit how it blends into MetaBuilding Labs. But the idea is we are strongly focused in building an ecosystem because we believe that the services an OITB should provide should go and search for the client. It's not enough to set up a system, etc. So we want to have a proactive attitude and towards reaching out to our clients. And this is made via two things, basically the digital platform and also what we call a meta-clustering action. It means go to search for the SMEs where they are, and they basically are in the cluster, in regional clusters. So that's why the project MetaBuilding and MetaBuilding Labs are called MetaBuilding, because meta-clustering, etc., etc. So this is very important for us. And then how this is a little bit how we are composed. So as you see there, we are a lot of RTOs that are also testbed providers. So we have, I am advancing information, but we have more than 100 testing facilities. We are not organizing pilot lines. We have a more generalistic approach. We have a lot of testing facilities that are useful to test whatever it's needed concerning, of course, building envelopes. And so some of also we have some projects is bridging gaps and joining networks. So we have the ECTP, of course, but one national technology platform, Federation of Construction in Italy, material clusters in France, and the European Aluminium Association, which drives the aluminium industry concerning the construction sector. So we have other kind of partners. We have basically service providers. So if you are in MetaBuilding Labs, either you provide testing services, or you can provide also innovation services, coaching services, anything that is needed all along the TRL scale, so the development process of any technology. You can find a member of MetaBuilding Labs, a partner that can provide this kind of services. So we have some universities and other kind of service providers. And also important, we have residential building owners, but not only so the building owners you see there, we have some of them that are providing testing facilities of buildings in order to test the technologies we are developing in the project by the technology developers you see there. But also we have associations or clusters. Housing Europe is an important partner in this project. It's a cluster of housing association in all Europe. It's a cluster of clusters in this sense. So we have also a NOL, so the European Network of Living Labs. So we have some living labs, but we have let's say the official network of living labs, and so we are developing a methodology in order to apply, so to have pilot sites as living labs. So we use a participatory methodology in order to drive our pilot sites. So let's move on. So the main intention is, again, I want to insist on this. So help SMEs in a proactive way. So go in and search for them where they are. And then here you have some of our testing facilities in different countries. So here you have the map of Europe with some of our testing facilities. So of course, these testing facilities can be laboratories, and so you think tier 3, 4 test benches. Pilot buildings ontology, this is also something particular in our project. For this project, we have some pilot building, but the idea is to streamline access to pilot buildings. You all know, if you are in the business, that in order to find pilot buildings, suitable pilot buildings for any research and innovation project is a pain in the neck. So it's very